Hello guys. Hello everyone. Okay, yeah, I can see myself. Great. Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. So here's the link. If you can register here, if you haven't done so, that would be great. If anyone hasn't registered, please register through these links to the session so we are aware of the attendance. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I haven't been presenting for about a month, more than a month maybe. So I'm just learning the environment here again because I forgot. Yeah. So yeah, give me thumbs up please if you can hear me well, so I can understand that I'm vocal enough. Cool. Yeah, great. Where are you from? I'm from Uzbekistan, but I'm located elsewhere now. I'm in London, and this is where I'm staying now. Yeah, good. How's your day going? My day is fine, thank you. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I was waiting for this moment to finally join the session and start coding together. Okay. All right. So today's session is about using publicly available databases to extract some useful information. Okay. Since this is Global Hack Week data, right? So it's dedicated to data. So I thought maybe this project would be very useful, very interesting to people, to hackers. So yeah, hopefully you like it. So I have organized it in a way that we will have a little bit of theory in the beginning, okay? So we understand what methods are available um, to use to extract data from the sources, right? And then we'll use one of those methods to actually retrieve data from Internet Movie Database and display it to the user. So we're going to use Linux scripts to retrieve data and display it on the console. Okay. Yep, Ubuntu CLI, that also works. I also have Ubuntu, but for today, I'm going to use Replit. So I think you hackers are all aware of Replit, right? So if not, Replit is web-based environment where you can write scripts or any uh, uh, or any program in Java or any other major uh, programming languages, and they also provide execution environment, so you can execute your Java code there or run bash scripts. So yeah, I've been using Replit for a long time now, and I really like how it is easy to use, and it's available and it's reliable. Yeah, same. Replit is also my second home, I would say. I have so many stuff there. Okay, so once theory part is over, okay, and then we're gonna move to a practical part. So it's gonna take about 2 hours, maybe less. So we'll see. So if we are ready, so I can start sharing some PowerPoint slides, and we'll see how we actually use what methods we use to extract data from public sources. Yeah, we can use Ubuntu CLI as well. Yes, definitely. Can I follow along on Windows? You can. You can, obviously. Windows has, if you have um, subsystem, I think it's called, right? It comes with Windows 10 or later. So if you install that on your system, then that provides Linux environments, and you can use that, I think, to write scripts. I haven't used it. I just heard about it, and that's my speculation. Yes, it will work with Mac OS, definitely. So basically, we'll be using well-known uh, bash commands. So I hope that will execute fine on Mac environment as well. Yes, Windows subsystem for Linux. Yes, so this is, if you have this component on your Windows, then I think you should be able to run scripts, build and run. Okay, let's start. Okay, let me. Gonna share my slides. Okay, so you can see this presentation. So I'm gonna stay right here so you get the bigger picture, or I can stay in here. Maybe this is better, right? So yes. Um, so this week is about data, right? So we're going to talk a lot about data, and one of the ways of dealing with data is to retrieve data from sources. So if we look at the life cycle, data life cycle, so data, uh, we do various kind of operations on data, right? So we call it CRUD operation. We create data, and we also retrieve data from where it's stored, and we update the data, and we can finally delete the data. So we can run these four distinct operations, four major operations on any type of data. And it doesn't matter where it's stored, on a relational database or a non-relational database, on a text file or whatever. Um, so, and for today's session, we'll be focusing on retrieval methods. So when we want to extract data from golden sources, so to say, so we have multiple ways to retrieve that. So three major ones that I know of we can use either query language, right? So we have query languages like SQL and many others, where we can write a query and run it against the database, and then it extracts, retrieves the data that we're seeking. And we've been using it for a long time, so we know how to use it, right? And another method would be scraping, because not all data is stored in databases, right? So they are sometimes stored in documents, in files. So in the case of, for example, HTML documents, right, or XML documents. So you see those documents are structured, right? So XML or HTML documents are structured, right? And so using that knowledge, we can focus on specific part of the HTML document. Let's say the part of the document that contains a paragraph, right? And we can use something like grep commands to retrieve all the lines, all the content in that paragraph, for example. Similarly, we can use the same method on XML document. And so this is another method to retrieve data, right? And there's also a method called method using APIs. So APIs provide a bridge between your software and some other external system. So external system, let it be some web service or some online database hosted online. So they provide this interface for outside users, so they can they can interact with that interface, use certain endpoints to actually send data or retrieve data. So these three methods are very popular. So you are probably aware they're very much like used in every major application. And so yeah, today we're going to focus on, in this theory part, we're going to focus on two methods: web scraping and APIs. So before I move on, I'm going to read the questions. Okay. Query which data retrieval we'll be using. So we're going to use, so initially I was thinking using web scraping, scrape data from IMDB website. This is fine, that works. But I think the better method to retrieve, extract data from IMDB is to use API. I'll tell you why. Okay, once we go through the slides, you'll understand why APIs are much better, preferred choice for retrieving data from data sources. So good. Yeah, I personally like web scraping because you can have total control on the content, but there are some issues we'll see, okay, in the slides. So let me remove my head because I'm blocking the content. Here we go. So web scraping, it's a method of extracting data from data sources such as websites or from text files. So we all know, so website, if you think about websites, all these rendered documents are available as HTML rendered pages are available as HTML documents. And when we talk about scraping, we download that HTML document and go through its content and retrieve that specific data that are interesting to us. So that process is called parsing, right? So what we do is we go through these HTML tags and find relevant tags which house the interesting content and focus on that element and and attempt to read any content within that element. So yes, API looks more ethical. Yeah, we'll come to that. Yeah. And so yeah, there are use cases. You probably heard about price comparison websites, right? So if you want to search, if you want to buy certain products and you want to see its price, obviously that those services provides you like 10 or 15 different prices for a certain product. That means they collected all that price information from various sources. But how did they collect it? Uh, Most likely what they did was to scrape the contents of Amazon and other online retailer websites and then combine all this price information and present it to you in a readable format, right? Um, so yeah, this is typical use case where scraping is implemented. Or if you want to buy like a plane ticket, right? So if you see Skyscanner, for example, it also collects price information from various sources. So it talks to various websites, maybe APIs to retrieve all that information. So again, scraping is at work in this scenario. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages, obviously, for using scraping. Um, for advantages, yeah, data is publicly accessible because if you see, if like most websites, data is available. Like if you go to Amazon.com and see the price, right, for a certain product, and that information, that data is freely available to you, so you can see it. If you inspect the code of that web page, you will see it's HTML document. All the price information is there. It's available to you. But on the other side, uh, there could be some implications, legal or ethical implications, because we're not sure if we can use that data that we just scraped from HTML to actually use it for our purpose, to recycle that data and use it for different purpose. So it's also, it may create some ethical dilemmas. So these are things that need to be considered, and also structure of websites may change. For example, structure of IMDB database website or IMDB website. 2 years ago, they may have used some tag to represent title, year, and the movie description, but the script, the Linux script that you wrote 2 years ago might have worked, but let's say now IMDb moved to uh, some framework, and they start to use some different tag combinations to represent that data. That means your script is broken now because it doesn't work with current current version of website. So that is like big downside of all these scraping scripts that scrape data. So they may work now, but they may not tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, there are also some challenges for how to actually scrape data from websites which are dynamic, right? For static websites, it's easy, piece of cake, but for dynamic websites, so every time your browser requests page from the server, its content is different, and that means there will be different tag combinations. And when your script is looking for certain tag in HTML document, it may not find it, and so it may fail to extract data from the web page. And also some websites, they implement mechanisms to block those scraping documents, I mean scraping scripts. For example, if you want to run curl command or wget command, so you probably heard about these curl and wget commands. So they retrieve they talk to server and they retrieve HTML data from the server, and those commands might be blocked. So uh, so server might respond with 403, like forbidden or something, that you cannot retrieve. You don't receive response when you run these bash commands. Okay. And yeah, and finally, like maintaining the scrapers will be challenged because, as I said, structure of websites change a lot. Uh, one structure you saw today might not be valid two 2 months from now. So that's a challenge. You need constantly review your script to make sure that it's up to date with the tags being used on the website. Okay, so let me see the comments. So we are, wow, yeah, asking a lot of questions. I'm really happy that this is generating a lot of questions. So yeah, there are ethical issues, as I described, for using web scraping. Yeah, both web scraping and APIs are appropriate. And bug breaker asking how to parse HTML documents. Yeah, HTML documents, it depends on what language you use. So for if you use Java, you can use Java or any other languages. I believe you can use in Java, for example, you can use text menu. You download the HTML document obviously first, and then you can use text manipulating methods there to play around with the HTML document, like, to focus on certain parts of it. Yeah, and if you use bash script, for example, you can use grep. So grep, when you use grep, so it completely selects the line, right, where that tag contain, where the tag is located. So, and then once you have a line, you can run additional commands like sed, right, stream editor, to replace some characters to clean data. So yeah. All right. Yeah, let's move on. I have other slide. Yeah, web scraping basically looks like as you see in the picture. So we have scraper software that talks to websites. It downloads the HTML documents and presents the data in any of these formats that are preferable to you. You can present data in JSON, in in some structured format, or in text format, in plain text format. So yeah, this is how it. You're familiar with it, I believe. And then we have APIs. So APIs are really useful. I like APIs a lot, and so they help uh, connecting uh, different type of applications with each other, because those applications are built by different teams, and their internal representation of data inside those systems are very different. So that's why those systems create an API as a way to standardize to access that data in the system. Okay. Um, so APIs provide like standardized access to data, and yet data can be represented in a one of the well-known formats, JSON or XML. Most APIs, I think, they provide in these two formats. Some provide in other formats like text. I've seen APIs which return text, just plain text. Yeah, and the use cases, there's when do we use APIs? For example, we can use when we are integrating to services which are provided, hosted in third-party servers, right? Which are written by third-party companies. Let's say you're building an application which assembles live scores of soccer matches, right? So you probably connect to those third-party service providers through their API, and then fetch that data. And or if you want to build a weather application, then probably you're using API of some weather data provider. And challenges, I mean, before we go to challenges, there are plus sides. Obviously, you have total control over data, and you don't violate the terms of services, most likely. And because this is why it's created, right? API to access data within those walls, which are hosted within the high walls, right? So instead of scraping it silently, we're being now active, vocal about it, saying that, hey, we're using this data service, API service, to retrieve data. And obviously, data that comes in JSON or XML will be structured, and that creates, and that means we can predict the structure of data. But when we scrape, for example, it's unpredictable how, in what structure it will be. We have to put a lot of effort to structure, to put some structure into data. So the API does a lot of heavy lifting on this, in this regard. But there are obviously some downsides. So APIs don't give you all the data that might interest you, right? So they may limit some data to you, and you may need to probably write additional. You may need to seek additional ways to retrieve extra data. Maybe subscribe to other API, or maybe pay for a license and get a premium version of API And also APIs, they require authentication and API keys. So you need to maintain those keys, and uh, so yeah, there are like a little bit of housekeeping in terms of accessing data through APIs. And challenges could be like we need to search for those APIs and find them, find the ones that are relevant to us. Um, and we also need to understand the documentation, because in order to be proficient on those APIs, which endpoint to use, we need to read the documentation and understand. And finally, we don't want to put a lot of pressure on APIs, and we need to make sure that we don't send requests over and over to those APIs. Otherwise, the uh, host of the host of APIs, the owners of API may block our IP address. Okay, so that means we may not be able to send a request to that API from our IP address. So we need to be careful on that. This is how API accessing data through API looks like. We send GET commands from our application to API, and API retrieves relevant data, talks to database behind the scenes, and then retrieves the data back to us as a HTTP response, assuming that we're using REST API. All right. So the question is, when do we use either one? Like when to use web scraping or APIs? So I think there are it depends. Like for me, for example, I use web scraping when API is not available. So my go-to choice is API, obviously, but they're not always available in some. For example, some websites, the I have an example, like good example, the airline websites, right? The UK or European-based airline websites like Ryanair and EasyJet. Like you probably heard about these websites. So EasyJet, for example, they provide API for developers, so they can retrieve flight information, flight data from EasyJet's website using API, but Ryanair does not. So it's possible that we probably need to write web scraping scripts to actually retrieve data from Ryanair's website. All right. Yeah. And even if API exists, they may not provide required data all the time. So yeah. And when we use an API, as I said, we need to authenticate ourselves. That means that we need to submit some of our personal information to the provider. But when we scrape, we don't have to. So if we don't want to share if we want to stay anonymous, then probably we'll need to use web scraping. And yeah, when to use APIs. So it depends again, like if we need like real-time information or most relevant, most up-to-date data from a source that is very reliable, then probably we need to seek API access. API providers, they usually maintain high quality standards to make sure that data is clean and it's reliable. And we also comply with any terms of service when we use API, because we accept it by using it. Yeah. Yeah, and as a final note, this is the end of my theory part. Okay. Yeah, and we need to implement some caching in either case, because if we write a scraping tool or a tool to access data using API, then we need to think about reducing load on those websites or APIs. Okay, so one way to do is to implement caching on our side. So caching basically stores data on our side before we go to website to scrape data or API to extract. So we check our cache, which is stored locally in our system, to see if the data we want is already in our cache. If it's not, then we can proceed with those two methods. Otherwise, we just serve our data from our cache, because that improves the request response time. And this is like very well proven method. Like caches, it's very best practice. So, and there are multiple ways to implement cache, which is beyond scope of this talk. But you can do your homework. So there are multiple caching algorithms. Yeah, you can read it up yourself. So yeah, that concludes our theory part. I hope that was interesting, right? Was it interesting? Yeah. I see there are a lot of discussion going on in the chat, of course. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think we are all on the same page. This is like a refresher before we actually start writing something on Bash script, because so as you saw, scraping may have a little bit of ethical issues, maybe some violation of terms of service. So for today's session, I decided to use an API to retrieve data, actually, not to scrape. Yeah. So so the source we're gonna use to retrieve would be IMDB. Okay, let me share my page. So you see it's a Replit interface, right? Before we start typing, I'm gonna imdb.com. So you've heard about this, I think, right? IMDB. It's an internet movie database. I think this is what it stands for. Have you? Yeah, it's all about movies. Yeah. Have you watched already recently released movies? Yeah, there were like two big movies, like they were making headlines very lately. And uh, I think you know what movies I'm talking about. So yeah, it's one is Oppenheimer, and the other is Barbie. Have you watched? Yeah, who watched? Yeah, I haven't watched neither. I haven't watched. I watched the trailer actually. It's quite good. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Oppenheimer. I think this is uh, it's a movie. I've heard about the person before. I read about his biography, and yeah, it would be exciting to watch uh, this movie. I also like the director because I think movies made by Christopher Nolan is very like exciting and thought provoking. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is the website we're gonna use to try to retrieve data. However, the problem is, so IMDb it doesn't have official API. Uh, so I tried to search for like API. They have like IMDb developer page, IMDb API, but it's they kind of have like IMDb API, but it's exclusive. They say available exclusively via AWS Data Exchange. Yeah, I was expecting something like a REST API that's easy to use. I didn't bother like uh, looking into this GraphQL backed API. Maybe you hackers can see it, look at it after the session. I'm gonna look at it, see if it's interesting. And yeah, I couldn't find. So let me copy link address and open here. So yeah, I'm talking about this API, IMDb API. It says AWS, available in AWS Data Exchange. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to use it first. So instead, so I tried to understand the structure of, uh, let's say, I'm looking for this Barbie movie, right, from the database, and I see that it has a title here, and it says year and the movie description, right? And so I tried to understand the structure because before we actually start extracting data, we need to understand its structure. So if you see uh, so if you see the URL, can you see the URL if you open imdb.com, right? Let me paste it. Uh, if you see, I just posted on the chat. So if you see the URL, so it has obviously a host name and slash title and slash double T and string of numbers, right? So that double T and that alphanumeric thing, this TT like 1517268. So that represents movie's ID. Okay, so that's unique to each movie, and so uh, if you if you open this, I'm gonna post one other link. Same movie, but it's presented in a much cleaner way. So data is So if you open this URL, so you will see the same data, but it's in different formats. So let's see page source. Inspect. So so if we look at the title here, right? So it's we skip yeah, this is where the title is located. So this is the movie title. It's under H3 item prop name and the year 2023. So if you want to scrape this data, we probably want to grep on download the HTML document, obviously, and grep on H3 on this string, right? And run other commands to clean, because we need to do a lot of cleaning. And because when you grep it, it retrieves the whole line, right? So we don't want uh, okay. If you see, okay, I think screen share doesn't show it, but if you do this inspect on your, or if you try to see the page's source, you will see that it's buried inside HTML, or that the information that we're looking for. So yeah, that is that may create a challenge. As I said, because we need to do a lot of cleaning on this, because when we grab certain line, it retrieves a lot unnecessary data we want, right? So we need to use some commands like sed probably to run cleaning operation. So we choose retrieve only part of data from HTML document which we want. Yeah, that's right. It's a H3. Yeah, this yeah, Kaiser Ali, I think. Yeah, that's right. That's where I found it. The name lays there. And yeah, it's a lot of like work, but there's a better way to use an API, right? Yeah, yeah, we can. If you if you if you want to take a break now, or shall we proceed to writing script? So I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go to Replit. Yeah. So I have my I've created global hack with data Replit, and I need to create a file. So I'm gonna call it IMDB global hack week, I think. Yeah. I'm gonna make it shell. So let's see what we have here. So we created a shell. I'm gonna just test it. Hello world. Just to make sure that we can execute it, right? So run it. Such file. Okay. IMDB Global Hack Week. So to execute, we do IMDB Global Hack Week shell permission denied. Right. So what does that mean? So we, as you see here, okay, so I'm gonna stop for a moment and then reply to questions. So what's the template? Yeah, there's no template. I think it's like you create just you can use like touch command to create any file in file system, and yeah, you can use bash as a way to run the script, but you can also use like dot slash, right? Okay. So we're gonna do change mode to 777 to IMDB. Okay, we check again. So now we got the read, write, execute permission for user, group, and the world, rest of the people, right? Let's see. IMDB Global Hack Week. Yeah, it executes. Everyone has. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Like 777. Like, why do we need to bother? Just give all access for now. Um, please increase font size. Thank you very much for reminding. Okay. How about now? Let me hide myself so you can see the whole screen. Looks good, right? Okay. So as you remember, like I said, IMDb doesn't have official a because we decided to use an API, right? Not scrape because of these ethical and some legal consequences. We don't want to do that, but instead we want to use API to retrieve data, to extract data. But problem is IMDb doesn't have an API, official API, but there are some third-party APIs which use IMDb data. So one of them, there are many such third-party APIs, but one of them I'm gonna use is it is called Open. I think it's called like Open Movie Database. Open Movie Database, OMDB API. Yeah, let's see how it looks like. OMDB API. Yeah, can you see my page? Yeah. So it says OMDB API is RESTful web service. All content image on the site contributed, maintained by our users. Looks like it's open source, kind of. And they support IMDb IDs here, as you see. So they added support for it. So same data you see in IMDb is available here. But important part is they say the site is not endorsed or affiliated by imdb.com. So so they are two separate entities. That's fine, but we're interested in data. So if you open this page, if you open this page and scroll down, you see how to use the API, right? So if we want to use, we need our API key. So if you, how do we get an API key? So if you see here at the top, so API key, right? And it's just free. I just put free here, fill in the blanks, and then submit. You will get an API key, alphanumeric API key in your email. It's easy. And then we can use that key. And so yeah, we can submit, we can search by ID or title. So there are some examples. So if you want, let's say Matrix movie, Matrix Reloaded, right? You want to search. Doesn't return anything. Matrix Reloaded. Full. Ah, here we go. So we need to make it full plot. Okay. So basically, it retrieves us data in JSON, so we can switch to XML, JSON, depending on what we want, or we can use IMDB title, right? Let's try to use the same ID. I mean IMDB ID that we had. Where was it? This one, right? So TT1517. Let's try to type this. Yeah, okay. So as you see, so this ID comes from IMDB, right? But the same ID works on this API, meaning, so we can basically use that. So it's about Barbie, year 2023, blah, 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 and the rest of the movie information. Okay, so enough of the introduction. Let's go back to our Replit. Oops. Replit. Where was it? Data. Okay, so this is our script. So the first thing we're gonna do is, so we're gonna mark so we're gonna use shebang, right? So that means that the file that we're writing is a bash file, right? So we're familiar with this, right? Yeah. Any questions on this? It's very like introduction for every script. So this is how we start our script. Yeah, that's mandatory. Yeah. So it knows that it's a Linux script, a bash script. I mean, it executes on bash shell, right? Because as you see, it ends with bash. That means it's a bash script. There are many other shells also, right? Besides bash, we have C shell or T shell or something else, and depending on what shell you're targeting, you can write there. So yeah, Can you show console tab for a moment? Console tab. Okay, yes. Yeah, here we go. Console tab, it's clean. There's nothing in there. Yeah, this is the terminal, like this console, right? Because we are using Replit, so this is why this is all I have, console, and this is my shell. So yeah, if you see the console, you can obviously run like command where you're staying. See the files. Yeah, we have here. This is my file which I created, if that's what you're asking. Okay. So um, so before I do any interaction with the API, I need to include API key, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create API key variable, right? And I'm gonna assign my key. So this is my key. So if you register, you can get your own key. It's just a simple key, nothing complicated. It's just as you see, like to obtain this key, you need to submit your personal information like name, email. Uh, but when you do scraping, you don't have to, right? So all that information is in public domain. You can be anonymous and still get website, web page without being authenticated. Okay. So so first, before I do anything, and so I'm gonna check because as I said, like we need to use key with every request to API. So I need to check if this this is not empty because we need to do this sanity check. Okay. So when we write if uh, mm, when we write if statement in Bash, so we need to make sure that there are spaces in here. Okay, so if we just skip the spaces, it will be executing, it will not be executing anything. So the spaces are a must, and we need to make sure that this variable which you created is not empty, so it contains something, right? So we need to check if the length is 0. But the problem is we're just showing the variable here. What we want is the value that this variable has. To access the value, we just put $, and we say if the length is 0, right? Then we say so we close the if here, and then we say what do we say? We can say something like echo please API key, something like that. Okay, and we can exit if with 1. If it's 0, that means script is executed successfully, right? But in this case, it's not successful execution, so we exit with 1. Okay. So this is a sanity check. Let me see. Yeah, we're making everything from scratch. Yeah, from scratch, definitely. This is a learning environment. So so everyone has different levels of bash scripting knowledge. So I think the best way to use um, to make most of this session is to start from scratch. So everyone uh, from novice to expert, so they are on the same page. Yeah, variable must not touch the brackets, definitely. So yeah, this is how we write if statements. So we enclose it with this uh, element if, and fi, which means that if statement is ending. And so how do we want this? How do we want this script to be executed? So let's say if we switch to console, right? So the way we execute it, obviously, like IMDB, global hack week, right? And then we want to pass something. So the idea is to pass the movie name, right? Let's say Barbie, and then so it retrieves movie information back to us. So as you've seen in the API, so when we search the movie name, it retrieves us all the data related to that movie. So we have to decide what data we want to show. So let's say if you use like so input would be Barbie. Sorry, what am I doing? IMDb global hack week and movie name here, right? Movie name, right? Obviously, I'm just writing this input, and output would be so output would be what's like title, right? We want title to be displayed, year when the movie is produced, and genre maybe if it's comedy or action, and I'm interested in rating, right? What rating it has, if it's 5-star movie or 2-star movie, and maybe a short summary, right? What that movie is about. So yeah, so we have input and we have output, right? So this is important before we do anything else, because this is a requirement. Like when you are interviewing for a job, for example, they say input is this, output is this. Make sure that you write something, a program that accepts this input and provides this output. So this is what we're trying to do here. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Arguments will be one single movie name. Yes. Yeah, that's right. It's just we're gonna keep these we're gonna keep things very simple. So we just pass the movie name and retrieve the movie information. Okay. We don't have like luxury in time to write a sophisticated script. We're gonna focus on. So yeah. So as you see here, there's a script, right? So we use script name and then parameter, right? And because we are passing parameter, right? We want to access that parameter in our bash script. So how do we do that? So for that, so bash has a way to access those. It can be 0, it can be 1, right? So 0 represents basically name of the script, okay? And 1 represents the first parameter, and this is second, and etc. Okay, and 3 and so on. So in our case, we want to access the first parameter, which is this one. This is again like this is 0th position. This is first position. Okay, so we want to access whatever the move pass as a movie name. So so what we do with this? So we want to make sure that the script is executed correctly. So we do another sanity check. Okay. So we again, so this Z, the letter Z means this is a switch, right? So this is, I mean, this is a um, a like a signal saying that the length of this variable is 0. Okay. When it's 0, if it contains nothing, right? So again, here we're checking again the variable, but this time we're checking the 1, which means that first param, the name of the movie, right? Here, name of the movie, right? So we want to check. If it's 0, then then we say, what do we say? We say again like echo. So best practice would be to give some hints on how to use it. So give the name of the script and movie title, something like movie title, right? And then again we exit with 1. Yeah, Z is a signal that it shows the length of the it checks the length of the variable. Yeah, there are many such signals. I'm just using one of them, Z. All right. So yeah, once we have this, so we check that echo success. We say success. Okay, let's try to run it this time. Let's see what happens. IMDB. You see, now it's pointing us that usage is this one, so we are executing it incorrectly. We can execute it in a way that's IMDB global hack week. Sure, we can execute using bash as well, right? But if we use bash, then we don't have to include this uh, dot and slash, but just skip it. It says, let's see what it says. Yeah, command not found. So because it's not registered, what do you know why it shows this one like command not found? Because I think it's not registered in the path environment variable. That's why it cannot find this. So if we have, let me hide myself again so you can see more content. Yeah, so yeah, so let's say now bash, and then we pass something like bar b success. Now we're executing it successfully. Okay. Right. Mhm. And then so movie titles can be single word or it can be multiple words, right? So what we want to do is we want to include, we want to combine, for example, in the case of matrix, it's single word, but there are also other matrix like resurrection, right? We want to include, combine them, concatenate with plus, because this is how we can pass multiple um, mm, words to API, so they can recognize it as those two multiple words actually represents one single movie name. Okay, so we can create a new variable, movie title, right? Movie title, and then we can use before we send the movie title to API, so we can concatenate. So what we do is we just open parentheses, and then whatever inside parentheses, we get its value and assign it to movie title variable. So so we already have movie title in here, this parameter, the first, right? And what we're gonna do is take this one, echo means print it, right? And then use tr command, which means transfer, which stands for transformation, and take any empty spaces between them, and then put plus sign between them. Okay, so we can check here movie title. Let's see, Barbie, but if we say Matrix Reloaded, it still shows Matrix. Why? Because I think we need to include in, yeah, because now the whole thing represents this one parameter. Uh, uh, but if we in the above case, so this was first, and then this was representing second parameter. So this was skipping it completely. So need to include in quotation. So now it says matrix reloaded. That's what we want. Okay. Uh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Someone. I'm first time using. Okay. What's command not found? It's yeah. It's you need to input uh, make sure that your code looks like here. So this is inside shell file, okay, sh. So what happens if we have, if there are any special characters in the movie name? That's a good question. If there are special characters, then our script, again, like our script, we're not manipulating data, right? So if movie title contains special characters, that's fine. We pass whatever user submits in our script to API. So it's it's burden on API on how to handle that character. Okay. So our script is like pass through. It passes data through, so without any modification. Whatever is in the title, what character is in the title, that we pass to API. So it's now on API to handle that somehow. So it offloads burden on from us actually. So, but that's a very good question. This is something we need to consider, obviously. Yeah, so we covered the movie title. Now we need to form an URL where we send the API, where we send the request. So URL is examples. Full. So, so the URL looks like something like this: HTTP imdbapi.com, and we attach T Barbie plot full. Yeah, this is what they want. So for our so let me put it as a comment. So API URL or endpoint. So before we actually talk to API, we need to form an endpoint, right? So as you see, this is HTTP, just plain HTTP, nothing complicated. So we write the exact same thing here, HTTP, and copy and paste, and okay. Here we need to make sure that we form the URL correctly. So what we're gonna do is so this is movie title comes next, right? So here, and so we say something like movie. So we have variable here, movie title, right? We take the same variable and paste it here, but we want value of that variable, so that's why we put the $sign. And we need to include API key as well. API key, the same API key that we had here, but this time we need its value. So this URL looks different, right? Because that URL was taken from the imdbapi.com website. So from web interface, obviously requests were authenticated. But when we write our own request from outside of this website, then we need to include API key so they know that request is authenticated. So this is what we want. Will the special characters in the movie name not be a problem for the API endpoint? Shouldn't be a problem, I think, because it depends on API. So if API again, like API should be able to handle that, right? How, what kind of character they can handle, it's their decision. So we hope that they can handle. That's why we need to read the API documentation very carefully to make sure that the API handles any special characters gracefully, doesn't complain. So reading documentation is very essential. All right. And now how we have endpoint ready, and we want to call that endpoint. So what we can do is we can just create another variable called result, or maybe data or something, data, right? And then we're gonna run subshell. So subshell would be like, we're gonna use curl command in the subshell in a silent mode. We don't want any error to interrupt. And we just say API endpoint. Yeah. So yeah, so now data has equal data. So now data should contain the information that we need. Let's check. Yeah, as you see, the API returns result, right? The matrix reloaded, year 2003, blah, 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 and all that information. So that means that we are executing correctly. Okay. As you see, this is much better than scraping the web page, right? All the information is there already for us to use. We have title, we have year, we have movie description, we have actors, everything. We don't have to put extra effort to retrieve all that information using bash script. It's already there here. API is doing the heavy lifting for us. So let me know if you have any question at this time, because I want to show, because this is not the end of the tutorial. Obviously, we need to cover a case where API may not return any movie. Let's say there could be movies like gibberish, which doesn't exist. Test. Let's say what? Yeah, response false, error, movie not found. You see? So in success scenario, we get this. Let me hide my face because you don't. Yeah. In success scenario, you get this, right? This payload. In fail scenario, you get this payload. Response false, error, movie not found. Yeah, all good. Okay. Let's proceed. So yeah, we're happy. We're retrieving some data, whatever, from API. And yeah, now we need to cover the case if the request was successful or not, right? So we again do sanity check. So we need to make sure that that data, right? This data variable. Says data variable does not contain does not contain does not contain does not contain this payload. Right? Let's copy this payload completely and switch here and paste it here. So we just cover with. So if it's not equal, if it's equal to this, then what do we do? So we can reply what we can say. Movie is not, it's invalid movie name or something like that, or maybe valid, but it's not in the database, right? Something like movie is not found in database, right? And we exit again with 1. Okay, let's test so far what we have done. Okay. Okay. Expression. Sorry. Right. Why is it complaining like this? Line 19, integer expression expected. Or would it be data? Would it be like this? Let's check. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was using the wrong. That should have worked, right? I don't know why it's not working. Or should it be just equals? Yeah. Okay. So this works. This equal sign. Let's. So we want some test movie. Movie is not found in database. This is what we want as a response. That's good. Right. Now, so now as you see, the response here is JSON, right? So just JSON file. So we want to retrieve relevant information from this JSON file. How do we do that? So we can create just, let's say we create a title. We want to retrieve title. So we open subshell. So this is called subshell, by the way, if you are not sure. So this is one shell, right? This is bash shell, but when you include this one, it means it's shell within shell, meaning subshell or nested shell, whatever you want to call it. So we want to use okay. So we want to use a subshell here and say take this data, okay, echo, take this data, pipe it, to JQ. So JQ is so JQ is a special command that helps us with no info JQ. Anyways, yeah, basically I wanted to show what JQ is, but let me run. Bash JQ command. Okay, share this tab instead. Can you see my page, right? So yeah. So this is the description, JQ command. JSON data are used for various purposes, but it can be read easily using bash script. So that's why JQ is created. Like it's not a built-in command, so I had to install it. So you need to install it and basically yeah. So this if you just Google it, you can get to know about this command. So how we use it is a bit so JQ has multiple like signals. I'm trying to find the one that's relevant to me. So JQ. Yes, it's a JSON processor, and we need to use JQ with R. Accept all. Mm, so we need to use just a second. I'm just looking up the information about JQ. Okay, just a second. JQ R flag. Okay. So the flag we need to use for JQ is, I think we need to use the R flag, or how do we retrieve it? Okay. So I think we can retrieve it using, so basically we need to retrieve title information. So we have title here, right? And if we okay, so let's see how the structure of this. structure of this JSON. So I'm gonna open JSON beautifier. Okay. So as you can see, I just opened this same JSON data, right? And then I am beautifying it code. So we need this title, right? So it's in the first, it's in the first level. Right? It's not nested. It's in the first level. So that means we can actually use our switch and the dot title to retrieve. Let's check if we can retrieve the title here. Call title. Yeah. Okay. Matrix reloaded. Title matrix. Yeah, it's retrieving the right information. Okay, yeah, this is how we access. So dot title means that we are accessing the title element in the JSON file. What if we, yeah, okay. Voice is echoing. Oh, sorry about that. Is it still echoing? I never had that. Okay, it's fine now. Good. Yes. So yeah, so we have title. So if we go back to our original requirements, what was it? We need title, year, genre, rating, and summary, right? Year. Let's try to run the same year. So we open subshell, echo, same movie data, and pipe it to JQ command with R flag. And here we retrieve, what do we retrieve? So we retrieve year from here, right? So we have title, and now we want year. So year equal year year. Let's see. Let's run it. Yeah. Now we have a title and year together. That is cool. What else do we want? Genre, rating, summary. Okay. So I'm gonna just copy genre, rating, summary, rating, 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 summary. Okay, so what's the summary? Let's see, where is the summary? So we have a year, right? We have rated R, we don't need that. Released runtime, genre, yes, we have genre. So director, we don't need director. Writer, actors, we don't need actors. Plot, freedom fighters. I think this is the information we need. Plot, right? Plot. So that will be plot. And now we're gonna equal genre, year. Sorry, genre here equal rating. Do we have rating? I didn't check. Plot is here, language is here, awards, poster, ratings. We don't need rating, but it must be here rating, right? Rating, IMDB rating. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's called IMDB rating. So we need to use the proper variable here, not the rating, but IMDB rating. Because if we look at here, so we have title, year, plot, right? And this IMDB rating, 7 point. This is what we need. All right. Rating. Let me finish this quickly. Rating equal summary. Summary. We have okay. Summary. Here we go. I think I got it right. Let's check. Okay, yes, this is what we want, right? So we have title, year, genre, rating, and summary. Let's try with different movie. Oppenheimer. Is it spelled right? Oppenheimer. Is it how you spell it? Oppenheimer. Yeah, if the JQ is not found, then you need to install it. So if it's not found, your operating system suggests usually what procedure to take. So it's usually like apt install or something. Yeah, so it suggests, it gives you clues on how to do Oppenheimer. Okay. Oppenheimer. I think I spell it right? Let's check. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I open title Oppenheimer, year, genre, biography, drama, history, rating 8.8, story of American scientist Oppenheimer and his role in the development of atomic bomb. Yep, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I haven't watched it actually. I'm gonna watch it hopefully this weekend. Yeah, yeah, that's about it. This is a cleaner way of writing script to retrieve data using API. We could have done scraping, but it would have required a lot of effort, a lot of data cleaning. Yeah, I think it's also, it looks nice. It's ethical. We followed ethical path, and also the code is elegant. It's very, very clean, easy to read. So yeah, concludes that concludes our session. And yeah, this is yeah, this is me again. Let me hide this. Yeah, I don't know why voice is echoing. Maybe it's a SteamYard issue. No. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for staying with me for 2 hours and so going through this. And it's a lot of fun actually to explore things and try to build stuff. And I didn't know about this external API for IMDb. I thought IMDb has an API, but doesn't. Also, IMDb is a good resource because what I like is those ratings are important because I like to read movies, critical response before I watch. So like there are critical responses by like critics published in Rotten Tomatoes, for example. They provide really good like uh, insight, and that tells me if it's worth watching 2 hour or 3 hour movie. Yeah. The question is, do we have to submit this challenge in DevPost? I'm not really sure. Do we have to? We don't have to, I think. It's just the educational session. Uh, it's just an educational session, and I don't think you need to submit. But you can if you have your own private DevPost repo, then why not? Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me hints. Thank you, Kaiser Ali. Thank you, and thank you, Bog Bogedi, and yeah, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, hackers. This is really a safe environment, and I like to bring in my knowledge and experiment, and it's for everyone. Like, uh, so we're here to learn, right? That's why, yeah, I learn also when I do some research about the session and try to come up with an interesting project. Yeah, so it's been fun. Okay, yeah, I think time is almost up. Yeah, I'm gonna just end the broadcast here, and yeah, yeah, good night. Thank you. Likewise. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day, night, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.